Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey Health Junkies, on this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Robert Johnson. He's the founder and CEO of a premium mushroom product company known as Mycroboost. He's also the founder and CEO of a supplement manufacturer known as Custom Capsule Consultants. He's a cannabis and hemp industry veteran. He's a health product expert, psychedelic advocate, and seasoned entrepreneur with a 20-year track record of launching successful startup businesses in new and emerging markets. Now, he and I are going to be talking about mushrooms today, but we're not talking about psychedelics. We're talking about mushrooms that are functional. So what does that mean? Ones that can help with your cognitive health, reducing inflammation, helping build resilience to infections. This is a big deal. A lot of people are promoting mushrooms, but we need to be thinking about quality. We need to be thinking about efficacy. We need to be making sure that what you're spending money on is actually giving you what you paid for. And so Robert and I are going to talk all about that today and give you a really good breakdown of how his company is making sure that you are getting what you're paying for in every single dose. So let's introduce you to Robert, otherwise known as Bob Johnson. Hey, Health Junkies, I have Bob Johnson on today, and we're going to be talking about mushrooms today and medicinal mushrooms. And whenever I tell people I want to talk about medicinal mushrooms, everybody seems to do this like, oh no, she's going to talk about psychedelics. I'm like, guys, there's so much more to mushrooms. I don't know how we don't know this, but well, here we are. So, Bob, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Oh, thanks a lot, Jannine. Really excited to talk to you. Oh, I get that all the time too. You know, we go to conferences. We have like our lion's mane gummies and little samplers for people to try, and people will come up and they're like, "Oh, what's in that?" And it's just like, "Well, it's some functional mushrooms. They're good for your health." They're like, "Well, I better not. I gotta drive." I'm just like, "Oh no, they're not psychedelic at all. They're just like a health supplement." And people kind of look a second time, and then they're like, still, I better not, So yeah, it's definitely a conversation I have on a daily basis.
Well, and it's something that it makes me laugh, and let's be honest, like, people have now seen the cannabis edibles and they look like the gummies, and so a lot of people see gummies now. And if we attach it to mushroom, it instantly comes, into that thing where like, oh, I don't know. So, today we definitely want to talk about how we can dispel some of the myths in particular. And of course, with your company Mycroboost, I love the play on words there with it, because I mean, that is the thing where I am kind of headed towards with a lot of my patients, is using lion's mane for focus, using the brain side of things, and really helping folks understand what power mushrooms have for the brain. So obviously you came to own a company that has mushrooms. So my first question is, what brought you to mushrooms? What was your like first experiment or any of it in that case? I'd love to hear what brought you to them.
Yeah, well, I was in the cannabis industry for a decade here in Los Angeles, and in 2018, as cannabis was legalizing, we sold our company, and the CTO of the company and I decided to start a CBD hemp supplement manufacturing company. And we had a lot of specialty and a lot of experience in making soft gel capsules and gummies and products for cannabis for so long. And then when hemp became federally legal, we're like, oh, this is going to be an opportunity where we can make this for our brands and for a bunch of other brands. But when you buy a soft gel and a gummy machine, you're not just limited to hemp, right? So we started working with all sorts of different supplement companies, and we're custom manufacturing products for people. And so I got a lot of calls about different trendy ingredients, and I started to see a pattern. People calling, they're asking about ashwagandha or elderberry or lion's mane was one that just kept coming up over and over. And I'd heard about lion's mane, but it wasn't until I was hired to start formulating products for people that I really started to understand what it can do for you. And specifically my role was understanding how much lion's mane was going to be a meaningful amount to put into a product. As I'm designing a product for a brand, I want to make it so if their customers try it, they're going to have a noticeable effect and, want to come back. And so one thing I kept coming up against is that lion's mane or any mushroom, like depending on who you ask, a therapeutic amount is anywhere between like 800 milligrams and 3,000 milligrams, which if you're making a really small soft gel pill, that's a lot of ingredients to put into a single serving. And I found that a lot of these supplement companies, they weren't so interested as much as, making the best possible product as just like putting these trendy ingredients on the label so they can have some sort of label claim and, get their customer to buy it. But essentially then, as I was understanding it, what they're selling is like a placebo at best. And so I wanted to get into mushrooms, but with these little form factors, I was just kind of limited, right? I didn't want to make a product where you have to take 17 pills to get a therapeutic dose. So I really started looking for companies that were making like concentrations of these things, right? This is how we did product manufacturing in cannabis for years. You don't put a big bag of grass into a little gummy. You make an extraction, a concentration of the active ingredient in it. In cannabis's case, THC. But in lion's mane and different mushroom cases, I'm understanding what are the actives in these things. How can we, isolate them or concentrate them and put them into a really powerful little product. And so we wanted to do mushrooms for years, but it wasn't until I found this company that was making these organic fruiting body extracts that it really became viable for us, because I wasn't interested. I don't even really understand the business model of sort of tricking your customer into buying something that you're just hoping they're going to convince themselves that it's doing something for them. The cost, the time of acquiring a new customer, the idea is you want to give them an awesome product that, not only that they're going to buy again, but hopefully, tell their friends about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I noticed that on your website, you were talking about being skeptical of supplements and things of that nature. And yeah, when there's such a broad amount that's effective based on research, you're like, even as a doc, you go, all right, I don't know, how much is someone going to get an effect? And of course, we want something to be potent. Now, I noticed that your soft gels with the lion's mane in particular have very minimal ingredients. So you found a way to be able to make gel caps with clean ingredients for that matter too. Tell us a little bit about that in terms of trying to figure out, the scheme of things for creating those gel caps. And, now that we know that you're getting the stuff in there, how do you make a gel cap like that?
Yeah, so we had a lot of experience with gelatin soft gels in the cannabis business, and we were using THC oil and making really metered dosages back early on when edibles were a real issue, right? Like you talked about right at the beginning. Some people have like a fear of a THC gummy because of probably some bad experience. And when I first started in the business in 2008, that was exactly how products were sold, right? You would go in and it's just like, well, how strong is this brownie? Let me check the packaging. Oh, it's 10 skull and crossbones. You have no idea what that means. And so my whole career has been about legitimizing plant-based medicine by making it repeatable, measurable, consistent. So when people find, an amount that works for them, they don't have to guess. And sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes, they're high on the couch for 3 days. You didn't, that was not what we wanted. But, so I'm always just trying to, look into the future and make a better product. So when we started Custom Capsule Consultants, which is our supplement manufacturing company, we really wanted to master vegan soft gels. And there's a reason why 99.9% of soft gels on the market are gelatin, is they're much easier to make. You mass produce them, and vegan soft gels are really finicky. You have to have the temperature, the humidity just right. They're made with tapioca starch rather than gelatin. And anyways, if you're making a health product, I've never had somebody, even if they're a meat eater, request, I need some animal bones in my, mushroom supplements. So the vegan soft gels was the first thing that we had to figure out and really master, and that was not easy. But then once we did that, yeah, we were working with a, PhD pharmacologist from USC, and she was an expert in product formulation, and then also worked for a cannabis company for years as their chief scientific officer, and it was a gummy company. So it was this perfect confluence of background. She knows medicine and measurements and research and development for designing products, and then she also knew like how to make it into a delicious raspberry gummy. And so once we understood and then found this company with the concentration, you know, also some things that people don't normally do is put powderized ingredients into soft gels. But
Yeah.
in my experience, the difference between a soft gel and a two-piece capsule that, it has a bunch of powder in it is, and it really depends on the product. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but in my experience, I found that soft gels have a much higher perceived value, because you can't make soft gels in your garage, right? You can pack a capsule with powder by hand, and there's some sort of questionable ingredients in there maybe, and it just looks like a big horse pill. And so we just wanted to make something that was sexy, that was, easy to swallow, that was good for you, and was going to be really beneficial. And one of the just like kind of bonuses of the tapioca starch was the shell just naturally has a higher pH than gelatin. And a lot of gelatin soft gel companies will do or will add what is called an enteric coating on the gel shell to raise the pH. And the reason that they do that is so it doesn't break down in your stomach and your stomach acid destroy a lot of whatever active ingredients are in there. Rather, it'll break down in the intestine and just lead to more absorption of the product that's actually in there. Or bioavailability is another vocab word that
Yeah.
that they use for that. And so that was a cool just extra benefit. One, health conscious people are looking for increasingly more and more vegetarian products, and then two, just that it actually works better than a gelatin soft gel was a nice added bonus.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's really cool because I think a lot of people don't. I mean, yes, I could see the perceived value with the gel caps. I know some people tolerate them, some people don't, but maybe part of that non-tolerance is that pH. And something of that nature could be irritating. I've just found that over the years. I've also found people, telling me, "Hey, doc, I'm pooping the capsules," and I'm like, "That's not
Ah,
good. That's
yeah.
not good." Like something's up with your gut. But it's delivery, right? It's delivery. And so really interesting that you're using powder within a gel cap. That's not something I'm familiar with. Usually it's a liquid extract within the gel cap.
Yeah, so there is a way to homogenize and suspend powderized ingredients up to a degree into an oil-based soft gel, because that's the difference between a soft gel and a capsule. It's all
Sure.
oil filled. But yeah, we found a way with Carolina's help, this PhD whiz kid, and yeah, we've been making products ever since. You know,
Right.
uh, we've definitely tried a lot of products that didn't work, and have to go back to the drawing board. But in this case, yeah, we have three different formulas, so we're just combining different mushrooms based on their benefits for targeted effects. So like we have a brain formula. It's my personal favorite. It's just a combo of lion's mane and cordyceps. And so lion's mane is like a cognitive enhancer. It also prevents against cognitive issues like Alzheimer's, dementia. It does a couple of things that psychedelics are also being credited for in more and more research, which is neurogenesis, which is like the formation of new brain cells, and neuroplasticity, which is connecting different brain cells that aren't normally connecting. In extreme cases with psychedelics, that could lead to synesthesia, where you're seeing or tasting color or seeing music, and having your senses cross in ways that they don't normally do. But in lion's mane's case, it's just making you more focused, more alert, able to recall words better, just having better memory. And then cordyceps is a great combination for this, go-getter product, in my opinion, because it's great for energy. It's great for the respiratory system. So a lot of athletes use it as a pre-workout. And in fact, one of my favorite little factoids about cordyceps was there was a Chinese track Olympic team in the 90s, a women's track team in the 90s that broke so many records and won so many medals that they were drug tested, and they passed all the drug tests, and their coach credited cordyceps mushrooms for their extraordinary performance.
Wow. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, yeah, cordyceps I highly use with my athletes, and definitely anybody who's looking for like an energy boost kind of situation as well. And, considering with all the critters that run around these days in terms of bugs that we're getting exposed to, I also think that cordyceps has a nice little factor with the respiratory system too. So yeah, I've been seeing kind of the same thing. That's I mean, the brain formulas in particular, I'm gonna back up on that because I feel like a lot of folks at this day and age are like talking about having ADD or not being able to focus. And obviously part of it could be pathology, the other part could be life, right? We're just too distracted. So I'd love for you to speak about a little bit in terms of using the lion's mane, if you have, and cordyceps combination for in the moment focus to get yourself honed in on something, get a project done, things of that nature. Are you seeing folks talking about using your product for that too, not in addition to just the daily use?
Yeah, I mean, everything is, part of my skepticism of supplements is people making claims like everything is just a magical pill that's like a cure-all. But a combination of awareness of your habits and desire to change and improve, I think is definitely essential. But in my experience, I take the brain soft gels every day, and then we have a mushroom coffee that's a
Mm-hmm.
combination of all five of the mushrooms that we use in our products. And I'm a big coffee drinker. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm just always need fuel, need a good attitude, need a good mood. And so I switched to the mushroom coffee about 18 months ago when we started experimenting with it, and I found that yeah, my attention and just like I think I like the way that you said it, living in the moment. I think is what is vital for me to concentrate on the task at hand, focus on what I'm doing and not be, bouncing between multiple computer screens or multiple distractions, at the same time. But I found, yeah, that my sales were really increasing the more I was drinking this mushroom coffee. I think like the combination of being in a good mood, having good energy, not crashing in the afternoon, was really doing great for me. And so when I found something that was going to be, not only good for health, but good for my business and all of our employees, then I was hooked. And that got me just always just learning more. And whenever I'm just kind of an obsessive guy like that, whenever I find something that I find interesting, and then I find personally that it's working in ways that I'm doing the research on, then I just can't get enough. And so I write about mushrooms. I talk about mushrooms at conferences, and I seek out people that have been doing this for a lot longer than I have, and just try and absorb all their wisdom wherever I can.
It's huge. It's huge. One of the things I think a lot of people would want to know about, because I've never been a coffee drinker, so drinking the mushroom coffee is easy for me. But a lot of people, when switching, I love to hear people's protocols. What did you do to switch? Did you kind of titrate off, or did you go cold turkey on the coffee, or what did you do to switch into your coffee?
Oh, for a while, I was
Yeah.
definitely just adding a cup of mushroom coffee to my, 24 ounces of Starbucks or whatever I was drinking. But eventually, I started cutting back. I noticed that my gut was feeling a lot better in the mornings too, as I was cutting back on the coffee. And I think part of what made it easier for me to switch and for a lot of the people that have tried Mycroboost is the taste. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whenever we're developing a product, I'll go and look online and find, the 10 most popular products in that category that I can find, buy them all, try them all, really evaluate them. And one common thing between most of them is they don't taste very good,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe coffee is an acquired taste too, but when that's like the most addictive, heavily used drug on the planet, making people switch to a mushroom thing that tastes like dirt, is going to be a tough sell. So
Facts.
I wanted to make something that had more mushrooms per serving than any product we'd ever made before, and more than any mushroom coffee on the market, and I wanted it to taste delicious. And so one way that we did that was adding a lot of cacao. So it's got a little bit of some organic coffee in it, only like 55 milligrams worth of caffeine, which is like a cup of Earl Grey tea or a third of a cup of coffee. But the cacao just makes it taste like a delicious hot chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started doctoring mine, just the way I like it. I put a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of cardamom. Sometimes I even put it into like a peanut butter banana smoothie. So I've found lots of different ways. And on our social media now, like once a week, we're sharing a new recipe, and just always trying to find more ways to enjoy it.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful because you're right. A lot of them taste like dirt. And that is the number one complaint I get from a lot of my patients. So like, I'm trying to get off of coffee, but these mushroom coffees, oh, they're so gross. So cacao, I mean, most people are not going to complain about a chocolatey flavor, like a mocha, probably kind of flavor.
Yeah.
And sounds like you're going towards like a Latin flair with it a little bit, or maybe even a, I don't know, Middle Eastern flair with the cardamom. It's kind of fun there. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about immune system a little bit and in the immunity blend that you have, because so many people turn to me and say, look, doc, my immune system's trashed from all the things that have happened in the last couple of years. I really need something that's going to be sustainable, that's going to help me, that I could take every single day. So give us the scoop on your immunity blend there.
Yeah, I think the main three things that mushrooms help in, like, categorically wise, are the cognitive functions of stuff like lion's mane and brain enhancement. And then as far as immunity is concerned, uh, inflammation, right?
Mhm.
Inflammation is one of the leading causes of, many illnesses in the body. And so almost every one of the mushrooms that we're working with is very anti-inflammatory. So that's a great start right there. And then the other thing is the gut microbiome. Besides what's going on in your head, I think what's going on in your gut is really controlling our mood and our health, just like on a macro level, more so than any other parts of our body. So those are the two areas that I feel like mushrooms are helping us the most, and is contributing to all sorts of other things because of overall health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do tend, like you're right. The brain, the inflammation, and the immune system tend to be like kind of the three main areas. And definitely, I kind of feel like a lot of us, our immune system gets trashed as our inflammation goes up. And so if we're working on that balance, it definitely is a nice blend there. So I guess my next question would be, okay, so you've got chaga, you've got reishi, and you've got turkey tail. We know, a lot of people have been talking about the reishi and turkey tail for being immune. Chaga is kind of one that gets thrown out as like energy booster. This one, it kind of has like multiple hats it wears there. And like you had said, these mushrooms do multiple things. What was the synergistic effect you were thinking about with the chaga and with the reishi and turkey tail? Did you guys think that about some
Yeah,
special stuff?
antioxidant qualities in
Mm,
chaga, you know, and
mm-hmm,
so that's the other thing that mushrooms do in nature is
mm-hmm.
transform, right? And so the getting rid of the toxins in your body is also part of, you know, having a clean immune system.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Hey, health junkies, intrigued about the possibility of mushrooms to help you with concentration, focus, reducing inflammation, and maybe even helping you to increase your resistance to infections? Well, hey, guess what? There is a code you can use to get 15% off to try Mycroboost. Use the code HEALTHFIX and see what you think about Mycroboost. All right, let's get back to the podcast. So, of course, people are going to ask me because my podcast is much about kind of getting to the insides outs of businesses, things of that nature. Sourcing. Who's growing these things? What are you looking for in your sources? What are you looking for in terms of with the gummies and flavoring? I know you had mentioned you've got your whiz kid there who's helping you with the flavoring. A lot of folks want to know natural versus artificial flavors. What kind of things are you using? Give us the scoop. Give us kind of your background there.
Great. So yeah, let me start. The I did a an article for Rolling Stone recently
Mm-hmm.
about exactly what's going on in the functional, aka adaptogenic, aka medicinal mushroom world. And so we talked about these mushroom coffees tasting like dirt. I'll tell you why most of them do. So when you grow mushrooms commercially, it's grown on like a starchy substrate, oats or corn, and that substrate is inoculated with the spores or the liquid culture of the mushroom. Then the mycelium or the roots of the mushroom fill out and grow throughout the substrate, and then it's the fruiting body or the stem and the cap, or in lion's mane's case, this cheerleader's pom pom looking fungus grow out. And so I'm again shocked kind of to discover what most mushroom companies are doing. They'll actually harvest that fruiting body, that pom pom lion's mane mushroom, use that, sell it in a farmer's market, or sell it to another higher end product, or even they'll just buy the substrate, the myceliated oats, essentially from these commercial mushroom farms, because it's a lot cheaper to just buy these oats, right? And so there is some beneficial properties in mycelium, no doubt about that, but they're in a very small amount. And then when you talk about the filler that is in that substrate, so most of these companies that are making dirt tasting mushrooms are just pulverizing that entire myceliated oat block, and that is what they're calling mushrooms. And right now, there is a company called Namex that makes fruiting body extracts and has a brand of their own. And there's a handful of brands that are all petitioning the FDA to make it so companies that are using myceliated oats can't call them mushrooms, because it's kind of like calling, the roots of an apple tree an apple. The fruit of the mushroom is the stem and the cap, or the fruiting body, and that's what contains the majority of the beneficial properties in it. And I thought when we were first starting out and understanding this, I was like, what could it be? Maybe 5 to 1, 10 to 1. That's the fruiting body has the polysaccharides and all the great properties of the mushroom in it. But the more I was researching on this for the article, I found that it could be as much as 500 to 1. So
Oh,
there's, companies that, sell the big jars of, 120 two-piece capsules. You could take that entire container of myceliated oat mushroom mass, or mushroom root mass, and that would be taking less mushrooms than like a single one of our soft gel capsules. So
whoa.
one of the hardest things about being, or I guess like the most time consuming things about working in these kind of emerging industries is education, and I was in the CBD business for years, still make a lot of hemp and CBD products. And that was the fastest boom to bust industry I've ever seen. And because, everybody got on this bandwagon, tons of entrepreneurs jumped into, get rich quick with CBD. And I think, a lot of shoddy products were put out on the market consequently. There's a ton of media hype around it that kind of was piggybacking on cannabis's legalization throughout the country. And I think people try a product, one, there's a bunch of crazy claims, CBD companies saying you're going to throw down your crutches and start doing, backflips across your living room. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then you take it and don't really notice
Nothing.
much or, don't have those extreme expectations met. And I think people like dismiss it when it has like, in addition to mushrooms, great health beneficial properties, specifically with anti inflammation. But yeah, so that's the main difference is myceliated oats versus fruiting bodies versus what we're using, which is fruiting body like extracts or concentrates. So the strongest amount that you can put into a small little dosage.
This is very enlightening because one of the things that I hear from a lot of people, and being a naturopath, I see folks that just, don't do well usually with things and have a lot of allergies, things of that nature. And I've seen quite a few interesting reactions to mushroom coffee. And now it's all starting to make sense in terms of what might have went down. So very interesting. And of course, this is why I want folks to tell me about their manufacturing processes, why you use what you do, because it's so important. Now let's switch gears for a second. Oh, unless you got update.
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, it's the truth in labeling. So just like, if you want to buy Mycroboost, I would love that. But if you're, at the store and evaluating, which mushroom product you should buy, you can check the label. And what this petition to the FDA is suggesting is that people would need to label whether it is, mycelium or myceliated oats that is used in the product. There are some companies that, in the fine print on the back of their bag will say myceliated oats, but that's a great thing to look for if you're going to evaluate, any type of mushroom product. And if you ask a company and they're kind of dodgy about it, that's probably what they're using. And most companies that are using fruiting bodies are shouting it from the rooftops.
Yes, yes. I've definitely seen that, which is now is to me makes sense. I didn't know about the pulverizing of the mycelium. Now that's me. It's gross, actually. It's kind of gross.
Yeah, I mean, making supplements for other people, I really found that, maybe I have kind of a backwards, not as business, shrewd as these folks, but they always start like, how can we, you know, make a product for like a penny or less, and then, convince people that it's worth, $5. Whereas, we're always trying to think like, what is something that would be really good for me that I would be proud to share with my mom, with my family, with my friends, and something that has really helped people. And then we'll kind of work backward from there. It's like, well, we do have to make money at it if we're going to help the most people, and just try and figure it out. But one of the most challenging parts is explaining like our 30 soft gel capsules is better than 30 bottles of your 120 myceliated oats pills.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. There's always that. There's always that. But for me, being a doc that recommends supplements on a regular basis, it's one of those things where I don't want to waste anybody's money, but I also want people to get the most bang for their buck. So quality, but also processing is incredibly important to me because if I can understand how something's made and know that it's going to have the highest amount of what I'm trying to get, the patient to get in their body, then it's a win-win. It just makes sense. So with the gummies, this has been a long-term debate in my office about natural colors, natural flavors, things of that nature. Obviously, using natural flavors of like ground up cherries or something, for example, for a flavor, is not going to give you the same thought you think of when you think of cherry flavor. So I would love to hear what you guys are up to in terms of creating the natural flavors in a way that is not as chemically laden as folks would assume based on just the term natural flavors. Give us a scoop.
Okay. Well, there are natural flavors and there are what are called WANF natural flavors. And WANF, WONF, stands for with other natural flavors in quotation marks. And just the way that the U.S. Food labeling and manufacturing has been lobbied is basically people can call natural flavor that is completely unnatural. So if you look for, anything that says with other natural flavors or WONF flavors, those have some other additives to them. So like you suggest, getting specific flavors like a cherry without other natural flavors is impossible to find. They're unless you're grinding the cherries, making your own flavors yourself, your own concentrates, extracts. That's not something that you're going to be able to get in a gummy. But citrus flavors, for example, are available without the other natural flavors. So we use those, whenever possible. And in our 5 different gummy flavors, 3 out of the 5 have without other natural flavors, and then 2 of them do still have with other natural flavors, but as healthy as we could find without, putting red dye number 40 and some of these, banned, that we now know are objectively bad ingredients.
Good deal. Good deal. Thanks for explaining that. I think a lot of people do still, want to know what we're looking at in that department. And a lot of adults, let's be real, we're all kids trapped in an adult body. We want the gummies. We want the easy to take things, and it's more appealing sometimes in certain cases. I think, you kind of have it perfect on your website where you've got the gummies on one side and the coffee on the other. It appeals to all of the I guess the easy senses for the adults. So that being said, I would love to hear what's your daily regimen. You said you do the coffee. What are you doing with the capsules? Do you have like what's your like star way to take them? Like what do you feel like in terms of overall health optimization? What are you up to?
I had a stomach issue the past week, so I've been adding the wellness soft gels to my regimen. But typically, I'm taking 2 of our brain soft gels in the morning. That contains 1,500 milligrams of lion's mane and 1,500 milligrams of cordyceps, and I'm usually taking at least 2 cups of Mycroboost coffee. Each one of those has 3,000 milligrams of mushrooms divided over lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, reishi, and turkey tail. So 600 milligrams of each of those. I don't think there's too much mushrooms that you can take in a given day, but so that is 9,000 milligrams of functional mushrooms on a daily basis. And yeah, that has me going and until lunch at least. Sometimes I'll have another coffee in the afternoon, but oftentimes we're also developing new products as well. So we're working on like a new gummy flavor. Right now we're working on like a matcha drink. So in addition to my daily regimen, I'm often, at least a couple of times a week trying something new. And usually when you're trying to get a flavor or product just right, you make like 20 of them before you find something that sticks. So, yeah, I think that I might be taking more functional mushrooms than anybody in like a 50-mile radius at least.
Well, it's a good point that you bring up. Really, I haven't seen there be I'm sure there's a higher end depending on every individual person, but I haven't seen there be a level where it gets to be too much. I think the only thing I've seen is just too intense of focus on certain folks with some of the lion's mane. But other than that, I haven't seen it be an overkill. In fact, I feel like Yeah, we probably could all use a little bit more in our world. The matcha is fascinating, though. Give us more scoop there.
Oh yeah, I mean we just want to have just even more coffee alternatives and right now too, yeah, we're trying to get the flavor, the color, the dissolvability, um, all that in and also keep it at a price point that's going to be affordable to people. I wanted to put the cinnamon and cardamom, personally into the coffee mix. One, our team convinced me like not everybody likes the same spices that you do, but also is going to add like over $1 a bag, which is big money in supplement business when you have a product in that $25 to $35 range.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've seen bags upwards of 70
Yeah.
for a month. It's a lot of people that's a big like, oh, I don't know. You could probably do the math though with Starbucks versus the mushroom coffee. You guys are going to come out ahead with the mushroom coffee, just saying, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was spending $150 a month on Starbucks. Easy.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. You're probably not alone though. I mean, coming from the Pacific Northwest and the Tacoma, Seattle area, you're
Yeah.
there's a lot of folks in that department. So at this point, I think folks got a really great idea of what Mycroboost is all about. We know now where you guys are heading in the future, some new flavors, things of that nature. I think, at this point, I think if folks, let's tell folks a little bit more about how they can find you, the website, and then you mentioned social media and all the recipes for the mushroom coffees, because I think that is gold because people are always looking for new ideas. So give us a scoop as what you're sharing on social media, how they can find you, website, all the deals.
Yeah, great. Well, it is Mycroboost with a Y, just like mycology is spelled with a Y. And we're at Mycroboost on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, but every week we're posting new recipes. We're also posting information from Rolling Stone articles. I publish about once a month an article about mushrooms in Rolling Stone. And most recently, I did like a two-part series that was 10 vocabulary words to understand mushrooms, and I'm talking about myceliated oats and polysaccharides and even like the Palan effect, which is based on a book, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Palan. He wrote this really seminal book about psychedelics and baby boomers taking psychedelics. In his case, he came at it as a skeptic, but this Palan effect is just something like that I've been talking about too, that is used to describe people's over hyped expectations for psychedelics being a magic bullet. Not that he necessarily should be responsible for that, but just kind of they put a name to it because his book is probably the number one cited as far as a piece of media that has really influenced the culture the past 6 years. So if you go on our Instagram, you can find all my Rolling Stone articles. Also, if you just search Robert Johnson, Rolling Stone, mushrooms or psychedelics, that's a good place. I'm speaking at South by Southwest in Austin on March 8th with a group of some really fascinating, smart people from the mushroom industry. One guy, his name's Reggie Harris. He started Hyphae Labs, and that's a testing lab for testing the amount of actives in mushrooms. And then Mary Carrion, she's a journalist who writes about all things mushrooms and cannabis, super talented activist. And both Reggie and Mary have a podcast themselves called Hyphae Leaks that's just talking about the mushroom industry. And then, well, I think the funniest guy in mushrooms is Dennis Walker at Micropreneur Official. He has a podcast called the Micropreneur Podcast, and he does like a daily video satirizing the psychedelic industry and mostly like the dude bros that are with the $1 billion hedge funds trying to come in and capitalize on this like sacred indigenous medicine. It really is kind of rife for comedy. So the four of us are going to be speaking on a panel called Notes from the Mushroom Underground at South by Southwest. And a few more speaking engagements coming up. And then this fall, I'm going to be publishing a book on mushrooms too. So excited for that, and happy to share with your readers when that's available.
Yeah, I would love to talk. I mean, I'd love to see that. I'd love to promote it. Maybe we'll get you back on and talk about that too, because I think one of the other big things, just like you said about the psychedelics and the perceived effect, let's put it that way, because I get it all the time from a lot of folks. And guys, I want to make sure you guys understand that Mycroboost is not psychedelic mushrooms. I just want to make that clear. We're switching the conversation for a second here, as we round out things, and maybe a little preview to our next conversation. But the concept of microdosing, a lot of people will confuse mushrooms that are medicinal for wellness, for immune, for that, with like microdosing, and then they'll have a microdose that they got from somebody down the street, and they'll do it for a month and they'll be like, nothing happened. And then they'll go for like a hero's journey and they do that and they're like, yeah, it wasn't really that great. And then they'll tell me like, yeah, I don't want to use mushrooms because I don't think it's that effective for me. So it sounds like there are a lot of things to be thinking about in the industry when you're looking for doing medicinal mushrooms correctly. Let's say taking them correctly. Maybe that's something.
Absolutely. And, I think that they're both sort of propping each other up. Psychedelics are getting a ton of media attention right now. And I think that's good for, people just educating themselves. There's kind of a mycophobia, a fear of mushrooms that is pervasive in this country. And I'd love to help be a part of changing that.
Absolutely. Well, we will make sure we get into that. Thanks again so much for coming on, Bob. I appreciate it. And we'll make sure, guys, we get all of the links to all of the different things that he mentioned on our podcast notes at drjkrauseND.com. Thanks again. Great podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, health junkies, intrigued about the possibility of mushrooms to help you with concentration, focus, reducing inflammation, and maybe even helping you to increase your resistance to infections? Well, hey, guess what? There is a code you can use to get 15% off to try Mycroboost. Use the code HEALTHFIX and see what you think about Mycroboost. Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.